Klay Thompson is a Dallas Maverick, and I have one piece of advice for Mavs fans who are thinking about this, who are excited about this, who are not excited about this. All I want to say is don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Klay Thompson is a significantly better basketball player than Tim Hardaway Jr., and he's essentially his replacement on a cheaper contract, and he brings a third level of scoring that the Mavericks have not had in a significantly long time. Sometimes it is really that simple. Klay Thompson is a better shooter, a better defender, doesn't have as annoying of a dad. Holy fuck, Tim Hardaway Sr. was so annoying for this team. I'm so glad that Tim Hardaway Sr. is no longer in the general Mavericks basketball ethos, because I'm so sick of hearing about how we should be integrating Tim Hardaway Jr. more. That's enough on Tim Hardaway Jr. Here's why I'm excited about the Klay Thompson signing. The Klay Thompson signing, not only is it very impressive by the Dallas Mavericks front office, because the Lakers offered more money, more years, had LeBron James personally call Klay Thompson and then say publicly, or at least released publicly, that he was willing to take a pay cut to make this happen. The Dallas Mavericks have finally won a free agency battle. When have we ever won one of those? The Clippers, the Magic, the Sixers, the Lakers, all interested, and Klay Thompson ended up here. You could even include the Warriors in that battle. Like, he still could have gone back to the Warriors even with all the drama if they offered him enough money or the contract that he wanted, but neither party was really willing to budge, and Klay feels disrespected by the Warriors, so he went elsewhere, and he chose the Mavericks despite having a lower offer, despite having less years on the deal, and despite not having LeBron James on the team. I feel like Nico Harrison not only had a huge role in this, which he absolutely did, but Kyrie Irving's ability to relate to Klay on a personal level, not just talking about basketball, and showing him an example of how he came from a low point in his career and has built himself back up to be loved by the entire NBA community. And he's playing some of his best basketball he's ever played, and he's 32 years old. Klay Thompson is older. Yes, he's lost a step on defense. He's not the same defender he was 5 years ago. We all know this. He's not the same player he was before injury, but he was playing in a way in which he was trying to be the Klay Thompson of old, the Klay Thompson before injuries. The difference between the Warriors and the Mavericks nowadays is that the Mavericks don't need Klay Thompson to be 2016 Klay Thompson. We signed him to 3 years, $16.5 million a year, to be a spot-up shooter and third option when shit hits the fan. And here is the big reason why I think this is an excellent acquisition, because we all know we needed three-point shooting in the playoffs. It eventually caught up to us in the Celtics series. The difference is when the Mavericks started seeing success in the NBA Finals is when they set up Luka and Kyrie both one pass away constantly, whether it was Kyrie on the wing and Luka had the ball up top and he was running a pick and roll, or it was Kyrie Irving kind of on the wing and Luka one pass away, sort of on the wing or on the top of the key, somewhere in that middle region, one pass away. The difference with adding Klay Thompson to this team is Kyrie Irving doesn't have to be one pass away from Luka because he's the best spot-up shooter we have on the floor. Same with Luka. Instead, we can put Klay Thompson in that position. One of the greatest spot-up shooters, especially wide-open spot-up shooters, let alone his difficult shot making, which has become streakier. Instead of Luka and Kyrie being one pass away, it's Klay Thompson, and the actions are running between Luka and Kyrie on the opposite side of the floor. And if someone has to come to the middle to help on a Luka drive, who is amazing at getting 2 feet in the lane, he can't, because he's leaving Klay Thompson open, who shoots 45% on wide open three-pointers. And it's at volume too. He shot 9 3-pointers a game at 38.7%. Do you know how many extra wide open looks Klay Thompson is going to get because Luka Doncic can find him in places that no other player in basketball can find someone? Tim Hardaway Jr. was our third leading shot taker last season. He averaged about 12.5 shots a game. Kyrie Irving took about 20. Luka took about 24. I estimate Klay Thompson comes in, he shoots roughly 14 to 15 shots a game. Luka and Kyrie's attempts go down by 1 each. Kyrie averages 19 shots a game. Luka averages 23. Who cares? At that point, it's arbitrary. Instead of having Luka and Kyrie in those positions that they have to be each other's best spot-up shooter, or we end up in an action in which it's a PJ Washington corner 3, or it's a Derrick Jones Jr. corner 3, it's Klay Thompson. I mean, the offense writes itself. Now, we have to talk about the defense because that is going to be an issue. A lineup of Luka, Kyrie, Klay Thompson, who's 34 years old, going to be 35 in February, PJ Washington, and Derek Lively doesn't have a lot of perimeter defense on it. If you're asking Klay Thompson to be a great perimeter defender at this stage in his career, you're going to get burned. Like, that's just the reality. And if you ask PJ Washington to guard the shiftier guards in the league, like Shea, or like Anthony Edwards, or like Ja Morant, which I assume Kyrie will take that matchup, but in those situations with these elite guards who have some size to them, we really don't have a counter for that. But it's important to remember that last season we didn't either until we signed Derrick Jones in the middle of August. We signed Derrick Jones when pretty much no one had interest in him. And we built his stock up to be a 3 years, $30 million player for the Clippers. And I think he was worth way more than that. I think he easily should have gotten $40 million, realistically. And we weren't going to be able to offer that to him, so I understand he had to go somewhere else. And his whole contract thing was just a mess. Him signing with Rich Paul and Clutch Sports 3 days before free agency, therefore we couldn't talk to him, but somehow the Clippers could talk to him. And so we just went with our contingency plan and Najee Marshall, who I will get to. It's going to hurt to not have Derrick Jones Jr. on the team anymore, but you have to remember, Derrick Jones Jr. was a vet minimum guy we signed in August to fill out the roster. He was not meant to be this good. He was, and he's part of the reason why we made it so far and why we were such a great team. But Derrick Jones Jr. as a point of attack defender benefited heavily from the PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford trades in February. He ended up being a significantly better defender when he had PJ Washington by his side and had Daniel Gafford guarding the rim. I mean, that's obvious, but I'm talking significant jumps in the defensive rating category. I think Derrick Jones Jr. is an amazing player. He's a high flyer. I think that three ball, while it looks wonky, will be just fine for the Clippers. But he is not the player to be losing sleep over if you're the Dallas Mavericks, because it sucks that he went. And it sucks that he ended up at the Clippers of all places. It really sucks. But at the end of the day, we can find a guy that hopefully does that just as well. Najee Marshall, a bigger player, 7'1" wingspan, not going to be able to guard the guards in the league like Derrick Jones Jr. could. He's not as quick horizontally. He's not as quick with his hands. But you know who he reminds me of? Dorian Finney-Smith. He reminds me heavily of a younger Dorian Finney-Smith, a guy who's coming off a career shooting year, shooting 39% from three. If that three ball is true, which his mechanics tell me that it feels real. Look, man, I'm not saying he has to shoot 39% this season. I'm not saying he has to shoot 35% this season. I'm just saying be as good from three as Derrick Jones Jr. was, at least be 90% of the defender. And really, I don't think we have much to worry about. Quentin Grimes, another great pickup. It sucked to see Josh Green go out of the door because I feel like with more opportunity, Josh Green has the potential to be a higher volume shooter who can knock down shots in the corner really consistently. It just feels like sometimes he's not willing to shoot those shots. It's weird because he was in some moments, he wasn't in others. It was a very strange thing. I love Josh Green as a player. To watch him go from a guy that literally never wanted to shoot a three-pointer to having a 40% three-point shooting year is incredibly impressive. And his progression has been excellent. He's a young guy. I can't believe the Warriors didn't want him as part of the deal. I would much rather have Josh Green instead of those 2 second-round picks. I understand that you're trying to clear cap space and you needed it to go get Kyle Anderson, which happened earlier today, or potentially trade for Lauri Markkanen. But as far as gaining talent, Josh Green is an excellent talent who's about the age of someone you would draft in the current draft right now. And I really think he has the chance for the Hornets to take a bigger role and be a bigger scoring threat. Now, I'm not saying he's a guy I'm going to lose sleep over because I feel like Quentin Grimes can fill the hole of Josh Green's production if he's at least what he was in New York or potentially better. I feel like Quentin Grimes' shot is a little more consistent. Yes, sometimes he has some off shooting nights, but that's a role player in the NBA. That is bound to happen. He's an aggressive defender. He's 6'5". He's laterally quick. He can guard those guys out on the perimeter. I'm not saying he's going to be some lifesaver like Derrick Jones Jr. was this season, but Quentin Grimes has potential to be that Josh Green type of player, if not better. I believe that we upgraded in Quentin Grimes to Josh Green. Despite how much I like Josh Green, I believe we have the potential to upgrade from Najee Marshall to Derrick Jones Jr. while they play slightly different roles. Again, Najee Marshall, a bigger, more muscular guy, described as a dog by everyone at the Pelicans. I feel like he is ready for a bigger role, and there's not another team that needs a defender of his quality quite like the Mavericks do this season. And I feel like it's obvious that Klay Thompson was an upgrade with Tim Hardaway Jr. So if we go out and sign another minimum guy like Dennis Smith Jr. or we bring back Markieff Morris, I feel pretty good about the Mavericks this season. I really do. We need to figure out whether Klay Thompson is going to be a permanent starter or if we're going to move Najee Marshall into that small forward position and bring Klay off the bench. I'm sure that part of the conversation of Klay coming to the Mavericks was, hey, you can find a home here, A, and B, you'll get a starting spot, which is something that Klay wants. So again, we've promised people starting spots previously in free agency. JaVale McGee, for example, and then within 4 games, he wasn't starting. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Klay. I'm just going to say that our offense is going to be incredibly impressive with Klay Thompson on the floor, and our defense is a little scary. But the guys on the bench, I feel like, can make up for that. And I feel like Najee Marshall is going to be a fan favorite of the Mavericks this year. One of my roommates is a Pelicans fan. I've watched plenty of him. I feel like he has the potential to be that Derrick Jones Jr. type of guy for us this season, but more in a Dorian Finney-Smith type of role where you're not expecting him to keep up with a guy like Steph Curry. You're really not expecting that from him. Now, I think he's capable of doing that, but I think the Mavericks need to look into being more formulated with team defense like we did and how we saw success in that back half of the season. Yes, Derrick Jones Jr. was excellent. I mean, he was excellent. High flyer. Again, excellent point of attack defender. A lot of people are overreacting to losing Derrick Jones Jr. And yes, I'll absolutely miss him. And his gap that he left in this team will be felt to some degree, but I feel like his loss is not compared to the Klay Thompson gain, if that makes sense. But the general gain to loss ratio as far as gaining Najee Marshall, gaining Klay Thompson, gaining Quentin Grimes, and losing Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Derrick Jones Jr., I feel like we got better, and that's what matters, right? And Klay Thompson is going to be an elite offensive weapon for this Mavericks team because we're not asking him to be a second option anymore. We're asking him to be a third option on most nights. And some nights, the other collective of the role players might make up for the fact that Klay Thompson is shooting 0 for 10 in an elimination game because that's the type of roster the Dallas Mavericks have right now. Anyway, welcome to Dallas, Klay. You're not fucking watching this, but I'm very excited that you're a Maverick. I haven't breathed this entire video for whatever reason. I've just been like spewing out words. But yeah. Very excited. Can you tell I'm excited? Like, we never get guys like this. Whatever. It doesn't matter. The Mavericks have a seat at the table now. They're seen as a contender by other players in the league, and that makes me very excited. Very, very excited. I also tried to record this video the first time and recorded it in slow-mo. I don't know how I did that. Anyway, y'all take care. Have a good one.